All right, welcome to the 13th episode of the Preserving Freedom podcast. Before I get started, to all the supporters out there, thank you for continuing to watch, to listen to, again, what I consider America's finest, their selfless service and sacrifice. It means the world for your continued support. Continue to watch, continue to listen, hit that like button on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, the good old TikTok. Again, these are amazing stories, and it is our job now to continue to share those stories and remember their selfless service and sacrifice to this great country. Today, I have an absolute honor. Again, episode 13, Called to Serve, a First Sergeant's Journey. We have Victor Magnus. Victor, it's always great seeing you, my man. It truly is. How are you doing?
I am well. The skies are blue and beautiful today. So.
Absolutely. Good old Wisconsin here. We're getting a little closer to the temperatures warming up. We'll get there eventually.
Eventually.
We'll get there eventually. So I got to start. I didn't put this question on there, but when did the pressure start hitting you when your parents named you after a Greek god? Victor Magnus. And I think everyone would agree. Like, that is a hell of a name.
So it is something that my dad, Victor Magnus, his dad, etc. I think if we wouldn't have changed my middle name, I'd have been the fifth. So I could have been called Cinco. That'd have been a fun nickname. But mom got her way. So I would say I was probably in my early 20s. We were in Wisconsin Dells at a Mexican restaurant nonetheless. And give my card. The guy goes, and I'm like, it's kind of like at that time when like credit card fraud was starting to occur. So like, it's been a bit and they're not back. So I walk over to the counter and I said, and I'm looking around. And all of a sudden I can hear this guy in the back. He's like, "Did you look at this guy's name?" And I hear him say it. And I'm like, finally, like I walk into the back. I'm like, "Can I get my credit card?" So, "Do you realize your name?" I'm like, "It's just my name, right?" So I don't think much of it. And then in college, one of my fraternity brothers, he was like, "Do you understand the meaning of it?" And I said, "No." So it was like, I hear nothing about it. And here I am, like, like 21, 22. And then all of a sudden, like everyone's like, boom, boom. I'm like, I don't know. It's my name. What it is.
Is there a meaning for it?
Well, so like obviously Victor, victory, conquer, and then Magnus is large and Latin and stuff like that. So it's like, I don't know, just it's always been my name. But yeah, people always are like, "Do you realize?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've heard it before."
When we first met, we'll get a little more insight later with the Freedom to Liberty retreat, and when we had our roster for Freedom to Liberty 3. And seeing that name, oh man, well done, Mom and Dad, and for continuing, because you're the fifth one, you said.
What about? Yeah, I could have been considered the fifth, obviously middle name, and then I wanted obviously to continue the tradition, and my wife's like, "Absolutely not." So we named our son Uriah, and then she said, "Well, we have a second, and it's a boy. Then you can get your way, And no, little girl didn't get my way.
Well, way to carry it on for 5 generations. So that's an outstanding name. We were chatting a little bit before this. So before we get into it, we were on the phone, we were chatting and we were talking, and you had mentioned a story about water parks. And I wanted to talk about this because I'm like, when I was hearing it, I'm like, we got to talk about this. So when people think of water parks, it's a good time, right? But your water park experience was trauma. Talk to us about your water park experience.
Yeah, so we were talking on the phone as I was getting into Plover, and you talk about Rainbow Falls, right? Like if you know Central Wisconsin and Plover, you know Rainbow Falls as a kid. Wonderful time. Well, there was also in Wapaka by 22 and 10, there was a water park there, and I can remember going there as a kid, probably 3, maybe 4 years old at the oldest. And so we go to the water park, and just like any kid, you get tired, you get wore down, you're in the sun, you're having a good time. So the family, we go to have lunch. And of course, I don't want to eat the sandwich, whatever the sandwich was. And I was a little shit. right? So I threw the sandwich on the ground, and my mom grabs me by the hand and pulls me and paddles my rear end, and of course I'm creating a scene and everything like that. So they just packed up and we were out of there. We left, right? We're at home, same day, and they knock on the back door. Living here in Menasha on First Street, and all of a sudden there's a couple police officers and some other person. Well, here somebody saw this, and I had the right to get my mouth probably slapped and butt slapped. And here someone called law enforcement and child protective services on my parents, all because I got pulled to the car and got my butt slapped. And I can remember them literally trying to take me from my parents, and it was, pretty traumatizing, right? Like this, for no reason. I had it coming. I acted like shit, and I got my butt slapped. But yeah, someone literally called Child Protective Services. So this is like 85, 86. Like, I mean, not that it's a different time, but it was. Yeah, so water parks. Eat your sandwiches.
Have you since been to a water park?
Oh yeah.
Has it been traumatic for you? Do you have flashbacks?
No, not at all. The like we joke, like my wife and I, we were dating and we had gone to the Dells. We went to Noah's Ark, and of course we're poor college kids, and we're like, hey, we got a Subway card. Let's go get a free sub or whatever, with the stickers on it, back in the day. And of course, my cognitive map is Subway's not as close as we thought it was. And we get down there to get the sub sandwiches, and they didn't accept the cards in the Dells. So here we are with a couple bucks in our pocket. We're like, oh, we're going to get a free sandwich. So that's the more recent traumatizing one. Came back down to food.
It doesn't end.
No, I love water parks. They're a good time.
Absolutely. So you were born in Nina Rocket. Then, for whatever reason, you went to Menasha. I say that only I'm from Nina as well.
Born at Theta
Clark.
But raised in Menasha. I was right away living in Menasha.
Yeah. So, back to Menasha, was it Blue Jays, right?
Yeah, Blue Jays.
Jays. Yep. Then over to Watoma. Isn't the Orioles or
the Hornets? Hornets. Yep. Okay. So lived in Menasha through 7th grade. At that time, then we had moved to Kaukauna. So I lived up in Kaukauna. So I was a ghost. So just like you got Menasha and Nina, and then you have Kaukauna and Kimberly, right? So red and white, we don't like it. And so lived in Kaukauna for about a year and a half, middle of 9th grade. Then moved out to Watoma. My grandparents had a cottage in Wild Rose that we had gone to every weekend growing up. Grandpa retired. He had moved out there. Grandma's health. So my parents were like, hey, let's be close by. They're probably going to need some help. And it was a good move. A culture shock. You go from a class of 500 to a school of 500. Oh. Yeah. So that was a bit of a shock, and of course you think the 90s, like everybody in the Valley wore Jenkos and had long hair. And then I move out there and I'm like, nobody wears these clothes, I fit right in with the burnouts, and I'm like, this ain't my crowd, So I had to adjust fire a little bit, So it was different. So.
But enjoyable, though, kind of getting out of that. City life. I need them in Menasha. They're 20, 30,000, something like that. But
I definitely prefer living out in the woods, and it's a bit more relaxing, I think. And there's downfalls as a kid. You don't have necessarily close neighborhoods, but I had all that growing up.
Yeah.
So it's I had that experience of getting on the bikes and riding down to Jefferson Park in Menasha and playing ball and all the things. So. Bike races around the block and all that kind of stuff. So I had kind of the best of both worlds at the end of the day.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. You said that as long as you can remember, you wanted to be in the Army. Where did that calling come from?
I honestly don't know. I know I was thinking about it this morning. I was like, when did I know that my grandfather had served in the Air Force? Because I always remember like a photo of him in his dress uniform. And, but I don't know like when it ever really clicked. I always had the little green army men, and I can remember in the backyard on First Street, we had a fence and it had the vines on it. And I would play with all the army guys out there, and dig tunnels and all that. And, and if we weren't doing that, it was playing with the Matchbox cars, because my buddy across the street, Matt Gerald, his dad was a dune buggy racer up in Crandon.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it was kind of that. So I can always remember playing with the Army guys, and I always liked the guys with the radio and the binoculars. And then obviously here I am as a forward observer years later, and that's my, weapon. But I always played with them, and I always just wanted to be in the military. I was thinking about it. What movie is it? Platoon, right? Charlie Sheen. I think he was in that one. So I watched it at some point as a kid, probably far too young, at like 8 or 9, right? And I was hell-bent at that point. I was joining the military. Whatever reason, like I can remember trying to get my parents convinced to build an elevated floor so that I could have tunnels and have a fighting position to sleep in, right? Like, no, I tried. I worked on it so hard to try to tell my parents to build it out. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it was that playing or what, but I think every boy, you'd play it. It's, cowboys, Indians, cops and robbers and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know many of my childhood friends that ended up enlisting in the service. So I think I was the only one out of that group of guys that I could recall.
Yeah.
But it was just something I always wanted to do. And come high school, I can remember taking the ADS-VAB, and I had no interest at that time to join the military for whatever reason. I was like, we're just out of class for the day. So of course I'm, when in doubt, Charlie out, and I'm making patterns, and I get the score back, and I have real low aptitude in mechanics and that. And I'm like, no surprise, I'm horrible. And real good in math and a few other areas. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Well, then I remember talking to a recruiter, and I'm thinking, oh boy, if I do join the Army, he's going to make me be a mechanic because I'm trainable. I don't want to be a mechanic. So one of my best friends in high school, Ben Wagner, who you served in Afghanistan with, he had enlisted in the National Guard as a junior, did split up. He came back, we got talking about it, and I was really not sure if I was going to college or what I was going to do. And he was like, why don't you join the National Guard? You can still be in the military. You could go to school. You could work. You get to be home on the, I'm like, oh, this is like the best of all worlds, right? So then in 2000, that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to enlist into the Guard. And then Master Sergeant Mueller, he was my recruiter. And I can remember having a conversation with him and sitting down and what jobs are available, right? Cook's always available. 13 Bravo, which is a cannoneer, 13 Fox, forward observer, and I think what else it was. And I was like, well, what do they do? So he's like, oh, the cannoneer, they shoot howitzer, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, man, whatever. He's like, the forward observer, they get to sneak behind enemy lines and blow everything up. I'm like, I'm in. I want that. Like, I want to blow stuff up. And so he came out to the house. I was already 18. No, was I? Oh, yeah, I was already 18, but I still had him come out to the house and meet my parents. And of course, my mom drilled the recruiter sitting at the kitchen table. And I can remember looking him dead ass in the eyes. And she's like, if I find out you're lying to me about anything, I will find you and kill you myself, right? And Chuck just kind of was like, I'm being upfront and honest with you. He's like, this is your son, right? Like, I'm responsible for him when he gets in. That's how I feel. So I ran into Chuck's daughter in service, his wife in service, and things like that through my years in the military. So pretty neat to see full circle on those sort of things with him. And then he's telling my mom, like, if we would get into a sustained conflict, this is again before 9/11, it's going to be the truck drivers. It's going to be these guys. These are the ones that they're going to need. We'd really be in a bad position if they're calling up the artillery and they're calling Victor in. And that's really how it ended up. I mean, first deployment, didn't do field artillery stuff. Potentially could have done it, but, I'd volunteered more times than I can count. But never got a chance to go and do that specific job, So, but yeah, so he was, my mom held him accountable. I will tell you that.
It sounds like it. Good for mom. And that's what moms do. But it seemed that from what you explained, you had a good guy there leading you, from that get-go, which is so important in my opinion. Because that's that first reality for you. That's the first impression, and for them, because there's some out there, right, that it is just a number.
Correct.
Unfortunately. So kudos to Master Sergeant Moore, you said?
Mueller.
Mueller.
Yep, Chuck Mueller. Yep.
Okay. Yep. So yeah, kudos to him for leading you in the right direction. And look at what you helped create, Master Sergeant. Look Victor Magnus right now. You did a good job. Well done. That's awesome for him there. Way to do the right thing. I can't. Yeah, moms, you are tough. Good for her. So at 18 years old, as you mentioned, May of 2000, what's going through your mind when you raise your right hand?
So here we are, we're doing it, right? I went down. I remember that's the first time I hopped on a Greyhound out of Stevens Point, rode down to MEPS. First time I seen a homeless person, of course, on the walk from the Greyhound. You get there, you do the duck walk, you do all the things. And I was like, okay, raise my right hand. I'm in this room and there's all these people. I have no idea who they are. Well, in that room that day, there was like 6 or 7, maybe 8 other folks from that had joined the Wisconsin Guard. And we ended up all going to basic training together. I think all but like myself and one other, all were 88 mics down in like, so truck drivers down out of 1158 down in Beloit area. They did their basic training at Fort Sill, and then they obviously shipped off to wherever 88 mics go, and then I stayed. But so it was really neat to be able to go with a group then from Wisconsin that we all, raised our right hand together. So that was kind of a unique experience. It's May of 2000. You don't think much of it. I didn't get to ship until January of 01, just because there was a backlog and the capacity was there. So I'm enlisted, and I get an opportunity then to go to drill, right? So I don't have a uniform, I don't have boots, I don't have any of that sort of stuff. But I still made an effort to go to the armory on drill and kind of see what this was about and what I was doing. And so that was kind of a neat opportunity before I shipped. I know I went to Fort McCoy on a weekend or some type of field exercise. A couple of guys had borrowed me their uniform and a pair of boots or whatever, and kind of got to experience it. So that was kind of a neat thing. So that's kind of where that RSP program obviously developed out of, like, how do we sustain our recruits that are coming in and have them prepared to go to basic, and then them not getting forgot about between basic and AIT if they're split up and that kind of stuff. So it was a bit of a different time. But yeah, so it was kind of an interesting experience to kind of have an idea before I shipped. So I was kind of ahead of my peers at that point.
Any thought of I don't want to say regret, but when you were there at MEPS during the process, because it can be an intimidating place for some.
No, it was.
You were good. You were going with it.
I was ready to go.
Yeah, good for you.
I was ready to go. Hotel Wisconsin.
Why did you choose the National Guard instead of other branches?
So, conversation with Ben. It was one of those things when I would say before the ADSVAB even, like, I had a wild hair in my rear end that I wanted to be in the Coast Guard as a rescue swimmer. And I didn't really know fully what it meant, but it was something that I wanted to do. Where the hell is the Coast Guard recruiting station, right? Never met a Coast Guard recruiter. So, of course, the first time we do the ADSVAB and when we start talking to the recruiters, you don't see one. So that kind of fades away, right? And then Ben was like, my buddy Ben had, explained, hey, you get to be home and then go to drill. You have your summer 2 weeks, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, well, that's like the best of both worlds. So it's like, this is what we're doing. So that's just kind of how I got there. So because he was doing it, he enjoyed it, and I trusted his guidance for some reason. But, yep. So
looking back, what do you remember most about basic training in those early days? Like you mentioned a little bit about the RSP program, kind of preparing you for that, but your experience at basic.
Yeah. So I didn't find out until I had injured myself in 1920 when I was in Ukraine. after I had some hip issues and stuff. That one leg is longer than the other by almost an inch. I had no idea, right? It makes total sense why there's no way in hell I can keep in step, right? So here we are, and you're doing drill and ceremony, and I can't keep in step, right? Because my leg's a different length. And left from right, nervous that I'm going to get just my rear end handed to me from a drill sergeant. So I can always remember, I always tell a story of on my left side, just pinching right on my left side to remind myself, hey, dumbass, this is your left, right? Turn left when you pinch that leg. So I had bruises, and then of course, after a while, you're so many bruises, it doesn't hurt. So you got to start moving. I just had a bruise just because I was so nervous, right? Couldn't keep in step. But somehow I just kind of floated under, right? I just knew to do what needed to be done, to be left alone, and get through without having, drill sergeants all over you. And that was something kind of Ben had kind of advised me on. So it's like the second or third week, I become a squad leader. I don't even know how I become a squad leader, but I'm the first squad leader, right? We're probably 7 or 8 weeks in, we're standing in formation, getting ready to head to chow. And all of a sudden the drill sergeant's standing there. And I just told a story to somebody. And he goes, come here, you. I step out, and I turn around, and he goes, I don't know who the hell you are. Private Magnus, drill sergeant. Are you always been one of my squad leaders? Yes, drill sergeant. How the hell do I not know who you are? I don't recognize you.
And this is we're on the third week, you said?
This is like the 7th week.
Oh, gee, okay.
Right? And I've been a squad leader for 4 weeks at least. And he's been there like every other day. Like he's always there. I'm thinking to myself, how's this guy not? I'm like, hey, I'm doing right, but I just screwed up today. So he says, can anybody tell me why the hell Magnus is standing out here? Well, I took real quick, somebody dimes me out. That's the guy that should have got the soap in the shower later. But I take my PC, and I had a roll of 100-mile-an-hour tape, right? And so I had put it inside the cardboard. You want to come up, say hi? The cardboard.
That's mine, everyone.
Say hi. There we go. Cutie. So I put my cover in that cardboard, right? So now it's just nice and tight, right? So of course they want your flat brim according to standards. Okay. So I'm standing out there, and I got my brim just curved, right? So he jumps me. Next to me is Jessica Davies, she's from Wisconsin. And I can remember her a few weeks prior, like, how do you get your hat like that? So I explained it to her. So, well, her hat looks just like that, right? And it's co-ed basic. So, of course, people are doing things that are inappropriate they shouldn't be doing. Well, right away, all of a sudden, the two of us are sleeping together. That's what the drill sergeant's saying, right? You guys want to rub up on one another, and he's just like, how about you guys go rub up on one another in that mud puddle over there? So he pulls us out to a mud puddle. We take her covers off. He scoops them up, all the mud water, puts it on her head, right? And it's front back goes. And we're rolling, and he's like, roll all over one another. You ain't doing it in my hallways. You ain't, on the stairwell. So now we are completely covered in mud and water, just stinking. We got to go to chow. So he goes, you're fired, rear road guard for the rest of the cycle. Got it, right? So we put our vests on, and we rear road guarded over because our starship was under construction for chow hall, so we had to walk over to the neighboring one. So, of course, now I got to go in and eat. Well, they ain't going to let you in because you're dirty. Didn't matter. So now we're getting screamed at by multiple drill sergeants for walking in, being muddy. And, of course, we had to go through and eat. And then we trail all this mud through the chow hall. So we get done, and it was back over, shower, change, and then we had to go sweep and mop. Well, whatever KP unit was there watching, and we had to clean for them because it was our mess. So it was like, that long. So that's a basic training memory. I just embedded into me, right? Like, oops. Oh, man, I never learned. I always kept it curved anyways.
So basic training, you said you left in January of 2001. Correct? Yep. So just kind of fast forwarding a little bit, what's September 11th, 2001, when I assume you remember where you're at,
yep.
What you were doing,
yep.
What's going through your head now, being in the military now, emotions, thoughts, feelings?
So I'm at work. I was working at that time for was Wisconsin Gas right before it turned into 1SG's gas distribution side out of Watoma. And I'm sitting out in the car, and the phone rings, and it's my mom, and we were chit chatting or whatever, and she tells me about the first plane hitting. And so I was like, what? So I can remember getting off the phone and turning it on the radio and like running inside, and we, just to try to find something. There was nothing really being reported. Um, and then I got back in the truck, and it was a day that I would go and I would check the odorant levels, and I would check all the pressure reads, on all the gas throughout the county. So nothing's on the radio. Mom calls me back again, and we're on the phone. And that's when the second tower got hit, and she dropped the phone. And of course, I'm like, what happened? What's going on? I go, what the hell just happened, right? So the dad picks up the phone, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? So he explains what happened. And then the whole day turns, right? Like, so I get on with my day, and that's when you paid for minutes on your cell phone, right?
Oh, man.
So my monthly minutes were shot probably before noon. I can't imagine. I don't remember what that bill looked like, but I can remember my supervisor eventually giving me a call later in the day, and he goes, if you need to go and you need to report to Wapaka, because that's where my armory was at the time, he goes, just go. Just tell me that the truck is there. We'll take care of it. He goes, don't come home. He's like, don't come to the office. He's like, just get your stuff and go. He's like, we'll take care of it. We'll figure out, we'll get your car to your house. Whatever's got to happen, you just do it, right? Where are we going? You drive around, and it's just, there's no social media. There's no constant news cycle that you can get. So just an extremely long day. And I can remember getting to my friend Dan Van's house in between stations. And I was like, I got to see this on TV. So he had been in a really bad accident. And so his mobility was extremely limited. And I'm just hammering on his window, trying to wake him up at his parents' house. And eventually you just see the sleepy face kind of come through the curtains and looking at me. And I'm like, come open the door now, unlock the door. So he comes, he unlocks the door, and I just walk right in, sit down, and turn the TV on. And he's like, what's going on? And then we watched the tower fall. And I sat there probably for an hour and a half. And we're like, what's going on? What the hell? Right. So super emotional, very long day. Constantly like, are we going? Am I going? Let's go. Like, it's time to go. Right. And it just turned into life-changing, right? 20 years, next 20 years of my life, we're at war, right? Like, who would have thought 50% of my life we were actively engaged as a country? And it was definitely life-changing. It changed the National Guard, changed the reserve perspective. It's no longer 2 weeks a year and 1 weekend a month. We started getting new equipment. We started getting better training. We were in the dark ages. We legitimately were, right? I can remember being I always, if I wasn't with the 127 as an attachment, I was part of the 127. And I can remember like squad leaders were the only ones who had night vision, right? That was a big deal, right? And then eventually everyone gets night vision and all that kind of stuff. So it modernized our force. But it was like, hey, this is go time. This is my time. And I don't know how many times I was like, babe, you need somebody, I'll go. You need somebody, I'll go. Just kept volunteering, kept getting told no, kept getting told no, kept getting told no. And finally, I remember pulling the battalion commander aside in like 2004, 2005. We were at annual training. And I kind of got in his ass about it. And he's like, Vic, you're going to have an opportunity real soon. He goes, we need you as an NCO to go with us. I can't let you go on this other mission. I was like, oh, okay. He's like, so keep your mouth shut. Got it. Understood. We got some stuff coming down the pipe. We had received a number of warnings and alerts. And eventually then in 2005, we got the call. And, Sec 4, whatever. We were right behind the 127. The 127 was up at Navistar running, convoy security and all that kind of stuff. So kind of filled in behind them for a brief time at Camp Shelby. We were there during Hurricane Katrina and all that kind of stuff. I think they were just before they left, and we had just got there, so there was a small crossover. See some guys I served with in 127, and then it was just like, hey, this is real, right? 34th showed up. They were moving up. The whole division was getting ready to go through there. It's like, hey, this is go time now. Like, it's our time. So, but it was a surreal day. Like, every year, 9/11, like, it's just, I take that time to try to listen to the names, and just recall that day. It's an emotional day. It's a day that I usually just cry, this past year, knowing that I was going on the Freedom and Liberty to actually go to Ground Zero in New York, which I had never been, it was a different feeling leading into it. And obviously there was other tragedies that occurred, unfortunately, either the day before or the day of, that kind of got the news cycle. So some of the focus was lost on the 9/11 stuff, and I couldn't find anything that was reading the people's names, and that's why I was really, really upset. But then obviously going to New York and being able to walk around the memorials and read the names and feel the names engraved, it brought a lot of closure. It was the right. I think it was a beautiful way to do it. So to go from, oh my God, this is happening, right, and then now deploy, serve, and then to kind of close out that chapter with getting a chance to go on the Freedom and Liberty was good. It was a good mental, like, hey, your service mattered type situation. So
good. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Glad that you, it's unbelievable impact that retreat has. Mm-hmm. So coming back a little bit, you mentioned you joined as a 13 Fox Joint Fire Observer. I'm going to ask too, because I always hear it, but I don't know the where or the why. Fister.
Fire Support Team.
Oh, so it's that simple.
Yeah. Or finest infantry soldier today. That's fine. Because technically we're a team of 2, or at the company level you're a team of 4. It all depends on your level of where you're at. But yeah, it's just Fire Support Team. And they just, Fister's where they've always called it. So
yeah. So explain for those that may not know, and you mentioned a little bit at the beginning when you were speaking, 13 Fox. What are your basic duties?
So, you come in, you're an RTO, you're a radio operator, so you got to learn the radio. That becomes your weapon. You're carrying that weapon. You're carrying the batteries, the everything, because you're just the bearer of it as a Joe, right? And you work with your E5 and you start to learn basic fire support integration. So you're at a platoon level. So as an E5 forward observer, joint fires observer, like, you have an immeasurable amount of responsibility as an NCO, and especially as a young NCO, because you, if available, you have every potential asset that the military has to bear by just picking up that radio and making a phone call if it's assigned to you or if something goes down. So you're going to have company mortars as an asset, battalion mortars. You're going to have opportunities for field artillery, close air support, TAC aviation, on and on and on, right? So you're an executor at that level. So you're living and moving around with the grunts. You're helping carry mortar rounds, all that kind of stuff. So Colonel Arnston, he was one of the commanders here, captain at the time when I was on the battalion staff. And he was like, he always equated, he would tell his platoon leaders, this guy with the radio, if you see something that you can't take care of it, tell them to make it go away. They will gladly do it for you, right? Like they'll remove it from the face of the earth if possible. So that's kind of that idea. So we locate, we execute, do the commander's intent, but here you are as an E5, and you know what every platoon around you is doing. You know what the adjacent companies are doing, right? An E5 infantryman has no idea. The E7 platoon sergeant has a good idea. Squad leaders maybe. So you understand that large battlefield perspective. So you're an executor. You get to Staff Sergeant E6, you're at the company level, And now you're working directly with a lieutenant, and you're part of the company team, right? So you're with the commander, you're with the first sergeant, the XO, and you're planning company level fires. You're going to battalion level briefings, right? Again, E6s don't typically do that, but in this role you do. So there's not many of us. There's 140-ish in a brigade, so we're pretty few and far between. And E7, obviously, you start planning battalion fires. You're running in the operations center, so you're helping, really control the battlefield at that point in the battle space, with what assets you have to bear, and it's just you really get to do some neat things, and get to blow a lot of things up. I can remember doing a squad live fire where we did integrated, and we had the 60 millimeters. We're shooting their training rounds, and we had the engineers breaching, and then we were assaulting the objective on, I think it's range 6 out at Fort McCoy. And I can remember getting up onto the bunker, and we seized the bunker, and we're setting up the final protective fire. That's the, oh shit, steel curtain, and we're going to get overrun. Everything is going to fire there, right? Guys are all putting out claymores and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, this is really awesome. This is badass, right? And then I got to fire a claymore, which I can't believe they let me do it, but I got to do it. I'm sure it really irritated one of the infantry guys that would have loved to, but so it was. It's a neat way to integrate. And then as the war evolved, the need for qualified and certified observers to control close air support, stuff like that, grew, because there's only so many joint terminal air controllers, your JTACs on the Air Force side, right? So it was always a skill of ours that we could do, but they needed to certify us in that. So we started, so I was one of the first few to go to the Joint Fires Observer ASI, Lima 7, school out at Fort Sill. Eventually we were one of the original schoolhouses that was fully qualified, certified to teach the Lima 7 here at Fort McCoy when I was at the military academy as an instructor. So I got to do so many things with close air support. So it's just, in which we'll cover back on a couple things, but you want it to go boom, you go boom. Collateral damage estimation, targeting, weaponeering, like all that stuff is what we bring to bear as a joint fires observer. We're a jack of all trades, very few master of any, so it's a wonderful time.
Yeah. So a safe assumption is you're glad you chose that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I got to do so many things that were firsts, for only a few of us, becoming a joint fires observer, becoming a JFO instructor. There wasn't many of us, some of the first in the National Guard, in its entirety, right? I became an instructor because at PLDC, which I don't know what they call it now, E5 NCO school, I can remember my instructor, we had to go up and we had to teach, and I got tasked with teaching land navigation and map reading. Of course, it's very important for us, right? I didn't know my instructor was a 13 Fox, right? So he was putting me under the wire. And that's where I fell in my love with wanting to be an instructor, right? So I got to be an instructor, got to do one of the first collateral damage analysts in the National Guard, and more importantly in Wisconsin. Like, how amazing, right?
Yeah.
We did JFO recertification programs for active duty, the National Guard. We were one of the first schoolhouses to teach active duty NCOES during the integration when ALC and SLC showed up. So I got to do so many things that were a first, just because I ended up choosing that MOS, so it turned out really well. That's where, Jared Spoody, you talked about him. He was obviously on the podcast. He became one of my instructors when I was out there. That's how I got to know little Angry Bear. So, yeah.
Crazy. And I love, you mentioned you make things go boom. I love that you said that leading up to our second deployment, had an LT that actually had some colorful language he used, but it was more like, why we win wars? Because we make things go boom.
Yep.
So I just, when you said that, I remember that like 15 years ago almost. I'm like, holy man. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Shout out to Spoody too. or as I said, Spud, I think at first. Like, I didn't know if he pronounced the E or not. And of course, I asked him during the podcast, like, how do you say your last name? Like, that was way you were talking about, in being an instructor, ALC, SLC, so advanced leadership course, senior leadership course, the ASI, L8 courses. What did teaching and mentoring soldiers mean to you?
Everything. To see the aha moment, right? And not only did it allow me to perfect my craft, like I was a cocky arrogant, right? Like peacocking is a big thing in our MOS because there's not many of us and we want to be the best, right? And I remember being humbled, seriously humbled going through BNOC or ALC, that I really didn't know a lot. And I needed to step my game up on knowledge. So really dove in hard and learned my craft and perfected my craft. Perfected my craft to a point where, I was doing doctrine review. We were going to Fort Sill. I rewrote AIT for 13 Foxes. Like it became who I was and my passion, right? So you watch students have that aha moment and you're equipping them with skills that they're going to go to battle with, right? These guys have the potential to go to war, be it as a reclass for AIT and they're becoming a 13 Fox, or I'm teaching them company or battalion and above fire support planning, right? So you're equipping these guys to bring the fight, right? So you want to be the best. You absolutely want to be the best, and that's what it pushed at. And it made me become a far better leader and NCO to see that development, which I've taken with me, into my career and everything like that to take care of people and train them. So
yeah, I'm trying to think of the correct words to say your description, but appreciate the absolute heck out of that. The passion that you have for, training that future, not just the future, generation of soldiers and whatnot, but, how fortunate knowing who you are, how fortunate they were to have somebody like you.
I mean, to have an impact of being there, I left for to come to the 127, and then I went back out there. I trained over 750 soldiers in either AIT or their NCOES or even just an ASI. It's a lot of Joes, right? I mean, you're talking Minnesota National Guard, Iowa National Guard, Illinois, Michigan, and then active duty personnel and people from Hawaii and all over, right? Guam, you name it. So it's like, get these people that are across Tennessee, these people that are across the country. And then you're getting phone calls and text messages. Hey, I'm on the range. How the hell do I set this laser designator up? I don't remember. We lost the cheat sheet. Give me a minute. Let me think. Right. And then here, I can remember a time I'm sitting in the kitchen at like midnight, 1 a.m, bottle feeding my son. And I'm on a call with a crew in a Bradley fighting vehicle, a B-Fist, and they're having an issue with their laser system and with their computer systems. And I walked them through how to set it up, troubleshoot it, and they got back in the fight, right? Like you can't do that in war. Maybe you could over time would be able to call back home in war, but like literally here they are, right? So I take this phone call, walk them through, so it's like things like that I got to do time and time again, and be like, hey, this is the book you read, go to this manual, So it was not only did the students leave, but the students always reached back, right? Because they knew we would honestly assist them. We just had that amazing group of instructors that truly cared what we did. So
that's incredible. Huge ovation for you for having that mentality. And you did hit on it, that being an instructor made you better as a leader. How so?
It's the idea of people join the military in most cases, right, for a purpose. And if a service member doesn't have purpose, why are they there, right? If standards aren't upheld, why are they there? So when you're enforcing the standards, be it uniform minus my curled hat, right? Be it time, be it how to do a specific task for go no go, right? they see that you instill something into them, and they become prideful. And when soldiers would come in and be like, "Hey, Sergeant so and so was here last year. I'm." They said, "Make sure you tell Magnus hi, or make sure you tell Sergeant Rainus hi." Like, oh, that's yeah, okay, And it's like, and you could see that some of these, with time, because I think God, Shane and I taught, I don't know, 13, 15 ALCs, and to see these soldiers that had little to no knowledge in fire support planning to go home to their stations, build training plans and train their soldiers on stuff, and then their soldiers come through and they're doing it the way that you taught their NCO. It's like, man, like this is worth it, right? Like I'm seeing the fruits of my labor, and it then inspires you, to continue that, because people want purpose, right? The military is a people organization as often as it gets forgot about. And as a first sergeant, I preach the hell out of that, because without the people, what are we?
Yeah.
Right? Sure, there's drones and all the crazy things now and AI and all this kind of stuff, but it still comes down to the individual, right? That they need to know that their leaders trust them, and that you as a leader need them to trust you, because, as a first sergeant, it's the sons and daughters of America. You're responsible for their lives, right? Their well-being. And I damn well don't want to have to stand in front of a parent. I damn well don't want to have to write a letter because I didn't do something as a leader that could have equipped them or trained them, right? I don't know that I could ever have lived with myself, if I hadn't given everything, because someone would have had something happen and they could have died. Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
In the business of killing, and bad things happen. And I just never wanted to have to be on that receiving end of it, from something that I could have taken care of. So that was really the inspiration to continue to do that, after having all my aha moments as an instructor, that it's like, no, what we do here is important.
Yeah.
So
I'm just going to leave it at that. I have no better words have been spoken for. And man, thank you for that. That outstanding. We're here with Victor Magnus, retired first sergeant, GWAT veteran. So first deployment 2005, 2006, and then again in 2019, 2020. What do you remember most about these chapters of your career?
So 2005, 2006, I remember May 13th, which is yesterday, was a Friday, Friday the 13th. I can remember getting a phone call from a buddy of mine who had gone into recruiting with 13 Fox, Eric Vergowan, and said, "Dude, the shit's coming." And he's like, "That's all I can say." And he hung up. And about 10 minutes later, the phone rang. And it was Jake Paulson. He was a 127 guy, and one of my fraternity brothers at Ripon College. And he goes, "Dude, I talked to my dad," because his dad had served. He's like, "I think the call's coming for you guys." And they were already getting ready to go ahead of us, right? So then the call came that we were going to be, we'd gotten a sourcing, that the report date would come down the pipe. And I'm like, Jesus, can you give me a little something? Because my wife and I are getting married January 1st, right? Like, we're getting married. Like, everything is set. Like, we already, what we knew with the war and the surge and everything going on, that we were really smart in our contracts that, hey, the grooms in the National Guard, XYZ, like, so we couldn't get penalized and stuff like that. So I'm a junior in college. I went to college a couple of years after the fact. I go in, and it's right before graduation for my wife, and she's sitting in the auditorium, and she just won an iPod Shuffle, right? Which was a big deal, right? And she's all excited. She sits down, and I'm standing in the hallway, and I'm like, how do I tell her? And all of her sorority sisters she's sitting with had seen me and pointed, and they immediately could read it on me because I knew them so well. So she got up and came out, and it was like, hey, this is happening, right? So then we found out, okay, I was leaving for a Maymester for 3 weeks to Puget Sound, to study killer whales. And when I got back, I had like 3 days, and then it was report to annual training. Well, then I found out Ben Wagner was coming back from Iraq, and I said, okay, I want to see him before I potentially report, and I got to go, right? So I worked with a college, and they gave it so that I took a week off and did the course in 2 weeks. They gave me my credit. They actually refunded me my entire deposit because I didn't get the full experience. So kudos to Ripon College. They're fantastic when it comes to military personnel and their ROTC program. Airlines were awesome. So I got back, got to see Ben report. It is something I'll never forget. Brad Smith and I are sitting in the Humvee, and we pull up to the barracks, and everyone's starting to get out. And I said, holler in the back, don't get out, don't unload. This isn't where we're supposed to be. They're like, what? I'm like, I just have a feeling we're in the wrong, these aren't our barracks. And they're like, I'm like, so they stay, right? So everyone stays. We're the only truck sitting there. And all of a sudden, Sergeant Martindale, he's coming, and he's just holding up paper above him. And we're like, holy shit, we're going to war, boys. We're going to war, right? Like, we're going to find out when. So we get told like August 10th, we'll report. I think it was August 10th, we're going to have report date. And guess what? Those were in our barracks. So all our guys are walking in, and it's a female barracks. I don't even know what unit. So all of a sudden, they're come scrambling out, right? Because they're getting screamed at because unfortunately, a bunch of the women were changing and stuff. So I was like, see, I told you don't get out. Just listen to me, right? So it was a holy shit moment, right? Like, we're going to war, right? And the whole mentality of being at Fort McCoy changed, right? Like, this is going to be different, you know? And as an NCO, like your mind shift, it's got to shift, it's got to change, and you got to get serious. And it being with these guys, they knew when it's time to play, it's time to play, but when it's time to work, it's time to work, right? And I've always preached that, like, we can have some fun, but like when your leader buttons up, you button up with it, and if you can't do that, you shouldn't be part of this group, right? So it changed the trajectory at that point in 2005. It wasn't Fisters were first going to be going up to Iraq, and then it changed, and then we were going here and whatever, right? It changes 1,000 times, and we go report to Camp Shelby, and it changes and changes and changes. Now we're going to be in gun trucks. We're not in gun trucks. This is constant. And we ended up as Sec 4. We lived on Arifjan. We were over at the S-Pod, Seaport of Debarkation, Embarkation, which is just north of the Kuwaiti Naval Base, flanked with oil refineries and sand and all the stuff. And we did Sec 4. It wasn't glorious checking IDs. There was a lot of ass grabbing, but there was a couple incidents. There were some drive-bys. I was thinking about this last night, how Iran then, obviously EFPs and all that stuff was happening, but like they were filling dhow boats, fishing boats, filled with explosives and floated them towards our seaport where we were at, right? So our guys would go up into crow's nest with the thermals, they'd spot stuff, and then the Navy guys would go out and blow them up out at sea, right? And we had Navy attached to us, so it was a joint mission. I was an E5 in 2004, I think it was 2003. It was really quick. And here we are in 2005, and I'm an E5. I've really only been back for basic training for 4 years, 5 years service. I get promoted to staff sergeant. Now I'm a squad leader in 5 years in the military, right? So I have my 10 guys. I got literally, when I get overseas, it was like a fantasy draft. I got to pick my squad. It was awesome. And then shit got going, and then I lost everybody in my entire squad, and everything got reassigned. But then we had 10 Navy attached to us too, here we are, 23 as an E6. Their E6s are like 30, and they're angry as can be because I'm so young, when they work for me. But there was some tense moments with some stupid things. I can remember we caught a guy trying to leave base in a vehicle he shouldn't have been in, and he got out and he ran. And I can remember going red and trying to determine if I should pull the trigger on this guy. Was he a threat? Was he not? Right? I don't know if I should have pulled the trigger to this day. He got another vehicle, and he pulled the guy out of a vehicle on the ground and stole the truck. I probably should have shot him at that point. But it was like, I don't know. he wasn't really doing anything harmful. He scooted a different way. We got on the horn with QRF, and they never ended up getting him. And we had another incident down at a gate we would run occasionally, depending on what nation would come in. We loved it when Italy would show up because you could go on the ship and drink because it was a different country, right? We were in Italy, so we could have wine and spaghetti. Kudos to my platoon sergeant for doing that with us. But we were checking IDs, and we're like, these are fake IDs. Whole truck. So me and Al Neubauer were like, what the hell, right? So these guys panic. They back up, and then they go to the right. There's nowhere to go because the pier ends, right? So then we start pulling concertina across, call QRF. Well, here we break up this like massive fake ID ring that the Terp was running.
Oh,
right? Swept under the rug. Unfortunately, it got swept under the rug, but it got managed and got handled. So it was just little things like that, But really what hit is, I'm pissed. I want to be in the fight. I'm 23, right? This isn't what I signed up for. This is not my job. This is bullshit. When the equipment started coming from Iraq, that had just holes in the side of them. Their vehicles were blown to hell. There's strikers. There's up armored. I mean, you name it. It's like, oh my God, right? And working with the logistics folks there, like, oh, what's that mean? Well, it's a vehicle that was hit. People died it, right? All of a sudden, it was like, I'm safe where I'm at, right? Like, because I'm like, this is useless. When I'm just guarding a port where equipment's coming and going, and it was really like, it's an important role, but it hit like, holy shit, the war showed up, right? And it showed up in a way that really changed a number of our mentality. Like we don't decide where to go. The Army decides, right? Mm-hmm. And people forget that. And that's where it's like, oh, I only did this. Well, yeah, guess what? That's where the government put you. So perform. Wherever the hell you're put, you perform. That's your role at the end of the day. So it really changed for that 05, 06 deployment. That was the aha moment, of like, I got a brand new wife back at home because we moved our wedding and we did everything. And it changed. It changed the whole trajectory of what we were on, in a scary but positive way.
Yeah.
So that's really the 05, 06 that I really remember. Really challenged me as an NCO and a leader to grow. I learned more about NCOERs and paperwork than I ever cared, but I'm glad I did. My platoon sergeant, Jack Kleps, put me with all of the asshats that just challenged me every day. But he did because I was young and dumb, and he knew I could handle it, right? He gave the old E6s a break. So, I thank him for that development and those opportunities on it. And getting back, it was like, all right. And that's when I was about to go to the academy before the deployment. Obviously, they kept me where we were at. And then when I got back, it was like, all right, I'm ready to go to the military academy. So that's kind of how all that transgression occurred at that time. So,
man, I'm glad I know we were talking a little bit before we started recording, and, you join the military tells you where you're going to go, but it's such a great reminder for all the vets out there. We hear it with the older vets on the honor flights, and you're like, oh, I never went overseas. I don't deserve a flight. Instead, like, you did what you were told to do, mm-hmm. and you still did what very few people will ever do. And there's more than just like Pew Pew America, right? Yep. There's a lot of jobs that it takes
beans and bullets, man.
Yep, to do what we do. So, yeah, man. Your deployment to Ukraine as an ops and sergeant major advisor. You getting this guy coffee every morning and stuff, but share that experience with us.
So, obviously, when I'm at the military academy, we did a lot of scenario development. We really set a standard for Fort Sill on how we ran our NCOES courses. We integrated the computer platforms, Janus. So your war simulators, right, that battalions and everybody does on these war exercises. Well, we used them in our classroom. We had op order briefings. We had product development. So it's like we created all this stuff. And Colonel Oakley was the brigade commander at that time. And I knew John as an E3 at my very first warfighter. He was a battle captain. And I remember no idea what I'm doing in the back of the truck, except I'm answering as many radios as I can, taking call for fires, right? And I got to know him then. And because I see the state of Wisconsin calling, I'm like, Christ, what happened, right? I'm thinking, I'm a first sergeant at the time. I'm like, what idiot did what, right? Because those what you expect on those calls. And I answer the phone, and I forget, I forget who was. I think it was Master Sergeant. I think it was Master Sergeant Jamie Prater at the time, calling me from brigade. And I answered the phone. He's like, "Yeah, I got somebody here that needs to talk to you." And I said, "Oh, okay. Hey, Victor, it's John." I'm like, "Is this Colonel Oakley?" "Yep." "How you doing, sir?" He's like, "I'm good." I said, "Where am I going and when?" I already knew at that point because I knew Ukraine was was a possibility. And he's like, "Well, I need you to volunteer." I said, "My wife will murder me if I volunteer." And he's like, "Well, the voluntold aspect." I said, "Yes, sir. What do you need me to do?" Right. And he was talking about scenario development and all these sort of things. And that was going to be a big part, working with our NATO allies, helping develop training scenarios which would basically be the JRTC for Ukraine. Yep. Sounds good. So that was April, May. And excuse me. So that we started that process, we mobilized, got over, rolled into Ukraine after doing some OCT training in Germany on Halloween of 2019. Started to meet the people we were working with, or the 101 we were left seat, right seating with. And eventually we go back to Germany for 2 weeks for a scenario dev and school that taught us how to do kind of the planning. So your initial planning conferences, your mid planning conferences, like we were getting into the nitty gritty of like how to help develop large scale things to include logistics, things that it's out of my realm, right? Like I had an understanding of, 2010 and 2011, I think of 2010, I think it was around then when the brigade got back from their 09-10 deployment. And I had created a recertification program for all the forward observers, the entire state. I mean, I put the logistics together. I put the everything as an E6, right? And I needed an officer behind me, and Colonel, now I think he's Colonel Aaron Freund, who was the 127 XO at the time, who was a field artilleryman. He got behind it, and we did that. So I learned all that stuff. So I was able to apply that at that time, right? So come in, and now you're trying to figure out, how does this country operate? How do they do things? Got really intimately familiar with the publication for NTC and RSOI, reception, staging, onward movement, and integration and took that and had to document what they were doing. They didn't really have an operations sergeant major. The NCO Corps was pretty small. Wasn't a common thing. So I eventually figured out who the officer was, and they were very protective of their stuff because their doctrine to them is secret. It's the law. So it took a bit, and then started to figure out that they had things and they were doing things that we had no idea they were doing. So to capture that and basically assist writing, we literally wrote doctrine for them and got it fully translated into Ukrainian. And I don't know, because by the time deployment was up, that was being transferred for Illinois Guard to kind of wrap up. So I don't know if it ever got finalized. So it was super interesting. So I didn't really have anybody per se to truly assist, and then I had all my officers that were doing all the development of the scenarios. And we created a large scale war exercise. Chief Brandon England, he was a 127 intel guy, E5, E6 the first time I met him. And then he became a warrant officer, brilliant intelligence, just top notch. So we create this scenario, get it translated, get the computer simulation right, and then the war kicks off after we got home. And it was like we wrote it up. It was damn near like we wrote it up. And that just is a testament to his knowledge and understanding how the Russians would operate and fight. So it was fascinating. But to sit and work with these guys who love America, want to be America, get frustrated because they can't do what America's telling them because it's not in doctrine. Because if they do something that's not in doctrine, they can get into a serious amount of trouble, right? So our team, we worked with Bo Don, who ended up with the war special forces, very young lieutenant, smart guy. And then we had Dima and Dimitro. So we had angry Dima and drunk Dima. Angry Dima was always upset about everything. I still talk to him, and then drunk Dima he'd smell like cheap vodka in the morning. But great guys, right? And so those were our counterparts. And Captain Ryan Wunsch and I, we really just got to know those guys and got integrated with them, and it was just an experience to see how badass America really is and how we're looked up to by so many nations, and to have that impact, and then to see what units and rotations before us have brought their forces to for training and to become a professional program. Sergeant Major Dietzler, who was 127 guy as well. I had him. He was the first sergeant when I was in the dead as the NCOIC, and we helped create NCODP and create the NCO school in Ukraine. Bunch of us guys did from the 32nd Brigade. So it's pretty awesome, big part of that, right? And here now I'm influencing foreign NCOs and officers on why, what NCOs have the capability of doing and stuff. So it was a really great experience. It was very top heavy, obviously. A couple colonels. I don't remember how many sergeant majors, like 14 of us E8s, more captains than everywhere you went, you could hit a captain. They were everywhere. So it was a tough deployment at times because COVID happened, and it is what it is. Working with linguists and really trying to help these folks move forward. It was super rewarding, and they're bringing the fight, and they're still bringing the fight. And it's impressive.
Yeah,
it's impressive. They're baby America, man. They want freedom. They want freedom more than anything. They want to be left alone. And as an American, if you don't feel that, figure it out.
Love it. Love that. Again, we're here with Victor Magnus, retired first sergeant on the Preserving Freedom podcast. Even at times without direct combat experience, deployments can still be very, very demanding. What were some of the unseen challenges that you faced overseas?
Fragos. It's the constant trying to figure out what's changing, why is it changing, and just learning to go with it, right? Which is difficult to do. For a lot of people, it can be difficult. For myself, but you learn the art of just drinking water and driving on, right? Like things are going to change, and once you understand that the only constant is change in the military, life becomes easier, and learning to, the folks that are your people, just take care of them, right? That's a hard lesson to learn, that you can't always influence up, but you have the ability to influence those underneath you and around you. And that was some of the biggest lessons, I think. Challenges wise, I don't know, deployments are, you come home and you're like, oh, a lot easier than living life. A lot of people will tell you that, right? Because just go to the chow hall, go to the gym, everything's kind of squared away and it's taken care of for laundry, etc. So those are challenges. Your hyper vigilance, you got to turn that off. There's just, it's part of it.
Yeah. I mentioned the laundry. Man, weird. You there are times, again, it's all dependent on what you do, but there's some times, when you get back to that big base or not, you get spoiled.
Yeah.
Like, man, someone folding laundry. Yep. That happens for everyone listening who's never deployed before. You turn in your laundry, you pick it up in a day or two, it's all folded, and I don't know how they do it. Especially
correct.
It's huge, the amount of clothes coming in there. And I know they're not just, they're not just throwing your little bag into
lots of them.
Yeah, I don't know how they do. Kudos. I don't know. Let me know. I can let my wife know. So, I'm just kidding. The public sees often deployments and dates. Sees deployment as dates and locations, What did those deployments feel like from the inside?
It just becomes life, really. At the end of the day, this is what we're here for. This is what we're doing. You get into that rhythm, and you go, and you got to try to fight complacency as time goes on, because that's becomes sometimes the biggest threat. That people let their guard down, they get lazy. Standards sometimes slip, and you got to keep up with it. And it becomes your world. Drama's going to unfold. There's going to be stupidity. There's going to be heartbreak. There's going to be things to celebrate. You become a family with those people, and I had my little hooch in 19 and 20. It was me and 3 other E8s. We still get together and spend time with one another and talk crap all the time. Yeah, it's still play video games with my one roommate that we always play video games with. So they're family at this point. So you can really make the best of it, or it could be absolutely miserable for you. It's just a mindset. You got to have the right mindset set in it. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely big on attitude. You go into it with that kind of that crappy mindset. That's the experience you're going to have.
100%.
So you never know what with that experience, the opportunities that it can offer when you kind of have an open mind. Let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what happens. So, for people back here at home that have never deployed, what were some of the hardest days overseas that people here would never know about?
Personally, I didn't experience it, but you see where, the Dear John letter comes and, somebody's wife is leaving them, or a family member passed away and they can't get back home for that funeral, or they miss the birth of a child, or, and you got your group around you who is going to support you. And you feel bad, you feel bad for your peers, and it's hard. It's hard. You don't think about it like you don't think about the missed birthdays, the missed holidays. A few years back, I did a Veterans Day speech, and I expressed, as a middle school, I said to the kids, I said, cumulatively, my time in service away from my family, I said, imagine you going into kindergarten and you don't see your dad until 6th grade. I'm like, that's how many days of my career I was not with my family. I mean, that's a lot. Yeah. That's a huge sacrifice, right? And people back home don't realize the sacrifices that the families give. The parent that becomes a single parent household that may or may not have support system around them. They got to get into a routine, and it's a struggle, and the kids are going to, there's kids involved, it depends on the age. I mean, there's so many things that people don't understand, the sacrifices, and the families sacrifice, I think, sometimes far more than the service member does, because we're just enjoying what we're going to do this, right? I don't have to cook. I don't have to clean. My laundry's folded, right? Yeah. I mean, I can tell my wife a few times, like, oh, must be nice, right? I don't want to hear it. So it's tough because you miss a lot of things, and you got to learn to swallow that. I mean, my grandfather, who I was just so close to growing up, he passed away right after our adjusted wedding in 2005. He passed away. I think, I don't even remember what day it was, but it was within 7 to 10 days before we deployed, before we reported. Right at that point, you're mentally shut off. It was probably 4 years, 5 years easily before I was actually able to address that. Right. I can remember being at the house and I broke down crying out of nowhere. And my wife's like, are you finally going to handle business for your grandfather? Yeah. Right. I didn't get to have that emotional connection at the funeral and all that kind of stuff because I was numb. Right. I was getting ready to go to war. And so I ended up kind of helping with the eulogy and all the things because that someone needed to step up, and that was kind of what I did. And plus I was numb, so those are things people don't think about too.
Yeah.
Is that preparation or that time when you get back. So there's a lot of sacrifices that generally I don't think people think about.
Yeah. Yeah. You outstanding response. Yeah, I'll say that. Outstanding response. And I do want to hit one more time on the family, our supporters that we have back here. You mentioned it. I think often, when we come home, it's the welcome home and all that. But we can't do what we do without them. And as you mentioned, whether becoming a single mom, a single dad, the pieces you have to pick up because life still goes on.
Correct.
When that deployment happens. But huge shout out to all of our supporters, family that continue to be there for us, that have been, that are and will be. We can't do it without you, hands down. Easily said, but we are so appreciative of what you do, because we owe you a debt of gratitude.
Correct.
Just as well. So absolutely support. Outstanding. Returning home after deployment. For me, it was always, I felt some of the best days ever in the world, that feeling, seeing family again, but always interested, asking other veterans as far as that coming back home, what's the feeling like, emotions, that transition back to reality.
Like mid-tour leave in 05, and that was great. It was fun. I was in my 20s, months without drinking, had a few beers and was too drunk. Ended up on the basement nude in my father-in-law's house very early in the evening. So not a moment of pride, let's say. Coming back, the welcome home, it's overwhelming. But then the reintegration is difficult. It was far more difficult in 19 and 20 coming back with children, because again, routines are established, right? So you don't want to disrupt it. So the first one was great. Got back to college, finished college, right? Wonderful. The second one was far more difficult, with the kids and that kind of stuff like that.
How old are the kids at this time when you come home?
So Uriah would have been, I think, 10, and Kinsley either 5 or 6, something like that.
So kind of old enough to understand.
Yep. So, yeah. And then come home, and it's after COVID too. So that was a whole nother mentality of.
I never thought of that, but you mentioned that patterns have been established. You said something like that, like while you're gone.
Yeah, patterns and routines.
Routines,
daily life gets set up, and they fill the void, right? Like they step up and they fill that void for that parent that's gone, or that whomever, right? That caregiver, and they get into that established routine, and now you got to somehow come back into that without disrupting it, right? Because the single parent basically has a point of pride in most cases that, hey, I've been able to do this, and now you're here again. Like, I can do it without you, right? So then you got to fight that stuff and that. So, but it's that was a tough. That one was tough. Plus, I knew I was nearing the end of my time in service and all that kind of stuff like that too. So, but yeah, they got to experience kind of both.
Yeah,
both sides of the coin. So
you retired as a first sergeant. What having that diamond in the middle of the chest, what does that mean to you?
You're that responsibility at a company or a battery level. Like I said earlier, it's you and that commander are responsible for America's sons and daughters. Like, that's it. It's huge. Making sure that they're taken care of, that standards are upheld, they're enforced, that punishments are done correctly, that people are rewarded when they deserve to be rewarded, recognition, and they say an ounce of sweat is far more is far better than a drop of blood, right? So you want to make sure that training is demanding and is realistic, and it puts people through. And I mean, I can remember when we went to Michigan, I can remember like I broke a day, right? Like it was too much with everything. And I had a mental breakdown, on some stuff. And it was because I couldn't control higher, right? Higher was part of the game. But if you don't take that into consideration, that the buck stops with you as that first sergeant. Like I can remember we lost a piece of equipment that ended up getting put in cold storage in February. My very first February drill, colder than cold. There were so many things that went wrong, but they were all things to learn from. And I can remember finding out we were missing equipment. And I'm like, oh my God. I go tell the commander, right? And eventually we searched everything, and I got out front of the battery and I said, it's my fault. It's my mistake. We messed up. It's my messed up as the NCO. And part of it was the way they were offloading and putting stuff aside, and there was some accountability issues with the equipment that I was observing that we ended up fixing it, right? But when I stood up front and said it's my fault, eventually there was other NCOs that I'd asked. I said, did we see anything that we could have prevented, right? And there was a couple NCOs that kind of put there. I said, get up here. You're at fault, just like me, right? So next thing you know, I had every NCO in a battery up front. And I said, we failed you. Every one of you in this formation, I said, I failed you first, and these other NCOs failed you. I said, if you are E4 and below, you have to count of 10 to get out of here. I said, every NCO, you're going to go down to that end of the drill floor, and me and the commander got to have a conversation. We're held accountable here. And when they see, I think when they saw that, like I knew that it turned, right? Like, holy, this guy is going to fight for us. This guy accepts responsibility, and I would have went to war and to hell and back with that unit without question, right? Because they had my back, I had their back, right? So things changed. We got better, like constantly better. Like it was always something to improve. It turned into Charlie Battery was Chuck Battery. We'd always would sound off Chuck give no fuck, right? We were Chuck Battalion because we ruled the 120th. Like, it was just, we became very cocky, very, I would say arrogant, but very cocky, but we could back it up, right? Because we believed in ourselves. I would have went to war in a heartbeat with every one of them. And I think they would have done the same because they became family. And I always pushed that with them. Like, if you have stuff like legitimately coming up with your family and it's drill, call me. Let's work through it, right? I called every soldier the very first Thanksgiving and wished every one of them Thanksgiving, made sure they had a place to eat, right? And then I got a couple calls right around Christmas. We had a drill on Christmas. We were just purchasing our house in Watoma. I remember talking to a private that I was kind of bummed that I was probably not going to get Christmas lights up because the weather was turning and my kids loved the house decorated. He ended up calling me. This private was so comfortable because of me reaching out to him and talking to him and having these guys. He said, hey, Top, did you get the Christmas lights up? And I'm like, who's this? Right? Because I didn't have his phone number in there. And he's, oh, it's private so-and-so. I'm like, yeah, I did. He's like, oh, you were just so worried about it. I wanted to make sure you had that chance. Like, a private, right? Private just called me. Like, so that's, that there's some value to that. There's some meaning to that, So you have that ability to impact, and you better take it serious when you, at any rank, it doesn't matter, but as a first sergeant, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. Just that moment that was an opportunity right there when you lost some, there's some supply missing.
Yeah.
And I feel like, the majority, if that's fair to say, take the easy way out, right? Ego. Just kudos again to you for taking that ownership, that leadership that you did. And I mean, you saw it, look at what you created because of that opportunity, setting the ego aside.
I tell you, you can go down and you can talk to those guys, some of the NCOs that are still there. Like they still have that mentality. Like the first sergeant before me and what they built, we just kept it going. Right. And it's a thing. It's a thing there. Yeah. There's a lot of pride.
So that's awesome. When you're ready to come back in and enlist, I know a guy. So
I'm pretty broken.
Oh, man, you're outstanding. Um, you've hit a handful of these already. What lessons did soldiers teach you? I know you mentioned one calling you the private about your Christmas lights, but any other stories, lessons that soldiers taught you throughout your career?
Patience.
Yeah.
Lots of patience. That, what's important to you is not always important to everybody else. And to step back and have to take stuff into consideration and then look at the commander's intent and what the mission is and that kind of stuff like that. And can you address that situation for somebody or not, right? Or do you have to tell them, hey, man, it's the Army. You got to suck it up and drive on. Like, this is what it is. Like, we're going to get through it. Let's address it when we get back. But patience was and I really don't have a lot of patience still, but it taught me a lot of patience. That's for sure. Yeah, and just the idea that when you treat people right, you follow that golden rule, right? Like they'll repay it, and that's not what you're looking for as a leader. But you can instill it and then you see others do that. It's rewarding at the end of the day, and I know like you had Trevor Anderson on and I worked with him a little bit here at the 127. We were not connected other than he was S1 and that, but like, he's like, yeah, he calls me, checks on me, right? Like, that's just me, that's just how I am. Like, if there are people that need to be checked on and it's important.
Yeah.
It's important to check on your battle buddies. Doesn't matter if you serve directly with them or not, right?
Yeah.
So it's super important.
Absolutely. That's a great reminder. For those that are listening, when you listen to this, maybe hit pause, make a quick phone call.
Yep.
Send a text.
Yep.
Absolutely. Check in. So kind of going on your reflection and I will say your legacy with your service, you shared with me a phone call prior to, just chatting prior to the recording. Every leader carries memories of soldiers they'll never forget. Luke Chatfield, you mentioned. I really want you to share this. Is there one soldier or a moment that stays with you to this day?
Yeah, Luke's definitely one of them. I mean, there's so many. But Luke I had as reclass. He was Iowa National Guard, reclass through 13 Fox. So I had him at AIT. Then I had him at BNOC for his NCS. Little cowboy, little squirrely bastard. And he was getting ready to go to Fort Sill after that because Iowa Guard was getting ready to deploy to Afghanistan. And he was going to go down and go through the JFO course for his ASI. And he was really upset he couldn't go through it with us, And I'm like, call me. You got my number, right? You get stuck, call me. So I remember talking to him a lot of nights after class, making sure he was ready because the fail rate in that class was very high, 20, 25%. I mean, it was crazy. It's very mentally demanding. You're doing, if you think about it, who wants to do geometry and any type of math under fire, right? And that's what you got to do as a 13 Fox. You got to calculate a lot of things and go. So he goes down, he gets his ASI, Iowa Guard ships off. They go to Afghanistan. I'm full time out at Fort McCoy. They come back. I get a phone call from a guy that I had done ALC or SLC with, Enoch, one of my classmates. Hey, we're back. Sweet. I'll drive over, but check you out during demo. So I went and had lunch with him and ran into all sorts of these guys that I had through courses. So it was kind of really nice. And they kept bringing up, hey, did you hear about Chatfield? Did you hear about Chatfield? I haven't seen him. Eventually I see him, we talk, whatever, connect. They said, oh, you got to ask him. And I'm like, I'm not asking this. I don't know what it is. If he wants to tell me, he'll tell me, right? So here they are. They do this insertion. It was them, a platoon, I think about 30 Americans, and I don't remember how many Afghanis, going on this air assault in Afghanistan. Birds take off, 360 Dishka fire, major ambush, just hellacious, right? He's on the radio and he's calling in rotary wing. He's attacking targets with guns and rockets and all that sort of stuff. There's a JTAX attached. He's working fixed wing, doing those sort of things. I think they dropped 20,000 pounds of bomb off the aircraft, just a few. And this battle, I don't know how long it lasted. It was sustained. They weren't prepared necessarily for that length. He had gotten to the point, from my understanding, where he was very dehydrated. They were just kind of putting water on his lips type stuff, from what I've been told. Never asked him for the full details. And gets back, right? He got something, I don't want to say, I don't remember what device, or what award, valor, and all that kind of stuff. A few years goes by, and I get a phone call from him. I'm in Wisconsin Dells. My son's wrestling, it's a Saturday or a Sunday, whatever. And he's like, "Hey, can you help me out with a call for fire trainer?" Sure, not a problem, right? Take those calls all the time as an instructor. Walk him through and troubleshoot, and get done with him setting everything up. Sweet, good to go, awesome. And he says, "Thank you." I said, "Yeah, man, not a problem." And he's like, No, thank you. I said, "Yeah, you're welcome, dude. Like, I'm gonna let you go." He's like, No. I want to thank you for what you taught me. As my instructor, it kept me alive in Afghanistan. It kept 30 Americans alive, and the Afghanis. That was powerful. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm tearing up now thinking about it. It's been how many years? It was one of those things that your service matters at that point, right? Like, I got retired at that day. I was well before achieving first. I mean, I was going to get E5 and get out of the Army. That was my plan, and I didn't. Right? I stuck around for 21 years. But it's like, when you ask, does your service matter? That's when it mattered, right? There are 30 American families that got their loved one home, right? That's huge. That's huge, right? You don't know. Did someone become a doctor? Did someone do this? Did they save a life? You don't know, right? So that was a very powerful thing. No reason to say thank you to me. I did my job, right? But it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big
Man, that's the second time hearing it, and it felt like it was the first time I heard it. I'm going to hide the goosebumps. And kudos to you, Luke, if you by chance listen to this, for taking the time to share that with you. I just, that will, I assume for you it won't either. That will never get old.
Nope.
Outstanding job, Luke. To this day, what you did then, expected no less from a great instructor like Victor here, but that's outstanding. Thank you for sharing that. Truly, thank you for sharing that. We're finishing up here with retired First Sergeant Victor Magnus, GWAT veteran, 21 years, active orders and deployments. What kept you committed for so long?
Really, the people, just that belief, right? The belief in the mission, the belief in what we were doing, and always seeing the ahas, right? And knowing that I could figure out ways to make an impact, that somebody would be better, right? Better in the military. They could become a better parent. They could be a better brother, sister. It didn't really matter, right? So I wanted to just keep putting myself into that. And the decision to retire was difficult. I had some avenues that were changing for, the professional side outside the military. I was like, all right, I should probably grow up, maybe get a real job, like really work now. So that's kind of where it hit, and it was like, all right. So it's like, I take that mentality of service and I put that into what I do every day now, by serving my community through my profession, and just a different capacity,
Yeah. I'm assuming once again, but I think I know I'm making the right assumption. I can't imagine the number of individuals you have impacted. I truly mean that. And to this day. And if you need insurance, shout out.
right.
Rural insurance or mutual, excuse
Rural
me.
Mutual, yeah.
Rural
Roads.
I don't know. People watching this probably laughing. You try to say rural. I don't know.
try to spell it every day.
You see this done on billboards all across Watoma and the eastern side of or part of Wisconsin, excuse me, the western part of Wisconsin. So yeah, you're all laughing at me. You trying to say it. So, what did the military service give you that that you can never find anywhere else?
There's a mindset as you progress through the ranks and you hold certain positions, you could really take things out of it that you can apply to everyday life. So just, for me, it's the operational planning, it's the big picture thinking, to take that and I put that into, there are times you got to just get your own ass out of your own foxhole, get above that high level picture and go, where do I fit? What's going on that's impacting me? And I take that into business. I take that into some of the spots and different boards and committees I've been on. There's the big picture. You can't lose sight of it, right? And people do. So taking a lot of that operational planning and strategy and just understanding people. Could you get that elsewhere? Sure. You can't learn it in school. You can't. And the military has given me just so much that there's, how do you repay it, right? But I just had a lot of great opportunities and I seized them when they were there and I had fun doing it. So
yeah, good for you. And I think for you mentioned repay. I think not that it matters to you, not that you are keeping track, but I think it'd probably still be the other way around. Right? The amount that you have given of yourself to so many, don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget that. Any fallen service members, their names, would you like to say them out loud?
So, I was thinking about Andrew Wallace. That was, obviously when the 127 and that happened. We were at Shelby, and that was oh my God, right? I didn't know him very well. I was obviously in platoons with him as a fister. His good friend Jake Paulson, again, was my fraternity brother, and that was one of his best friends. So Jake lost somebody, right? Extremely close to him, and it's just one of those guys that I often think about. He was a hell of a school teacher and all the kind of things that he could have done. So he's really the one that I always think about. Yeah. And I know there's many other guys, the 127 lost with time, but Andy's definitely one of those guys.
Yeah. Andy Wallace. Yeah. If there's someone, service member, fellow service member, take the few seconds and say their name out loud. We have to continue to remember them so they are not forgotten. What advice would you give an 18-year-old today considering to join the military?
Find something that's going to translate to when you retire. It's like I was able to take the skills from the positions I held and translate it into the civilian sector. Like you just can't take blowing stuff up into the real world unless you're shooting for an avalanche or something like that out west. That's about it. Get into something like on the mechanical side of things that you can apply on fixing or repairing aircraft, rotary wing, whatever it might be it intelligence community is a huge thing. Drones, right? There's just so much stuff with drones today. You can go in and you can do finance and you retire out of it. You have an immeasurable amount of experience in finance. You'll have schools that the military is going to send you to. I mean, there's so many things that you can do if you think long-term strategy, like how can I set myself up? I can sacrifice, but I can also prepare myself.
Yeah.
And at 18, where do we think for an end goal? We really don't, right? We're dumb, we're young. But that's kind of where I would give that advice. Like think ahead. Where do I want to be when this time is up? Be it 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, whatever. What can I do to prepare myself for it? Or, we had one of our officers, he's a lawyer. Like, why don't you be a lawyer in the military? He's like, because I want to do something different, right? I don't blame him, right?
Yeah.
So there's that mentality too, but find something that is really going to translate into something when you do end your time in service that you can apply it, right? Because there's a lot there. The military will train you in so many things to to really make an impact in your community when you do get out of service. So
we all had the extreme pleasure and honor of heading to New York last year for the Freedom to Liberty retreat put on by the Missions of Honor organization here in Northeast Wisconsin. So for those that, I shared every podcast, 3.5 days in New York City for GWAT veterans. Explain your experience to us with the Freedom to Liberty 3 retreat last year.
Find out Jared was going to be on the flight. And I was like, oh, somebody I know, right? And then go to the first mandatory meet and greet. I'm like, I didn't recognize a single soul anywhere else. Eventually, there was like, I was with him over here. There's a couple guys, but to have him was great. It was, it was somebody I could relate to. And even without that, I would have been fine. It was an ability to close a chapter, right? PTSD is such a shitty thing, and it's something people constantly replay in their heads, and it's something that doesn't stop. It's this loop, right? We got to break that loop, got to break that cycle. Never having been to New York, never having been to Ground Zero, and to be there, it helped close a chapter, right? That was a big thing. To see other people handle the situation individually, that it meant something to them to hear other stories from other veterans, and just to be around veterans, right? Like, I didn't realize how much I missed it. Holy cow, the ridiculous jokes, the ass grabbing, like the nonsense, right? Like, you don't get to do that in civilian life. I was like, damn, I missed this, right? It felt so good. I didn't realize that. So to have the conversations, to share stories, to see Ground Zero, I can remember being, it's just a red carpet. Missions of Honor does an unbelievable job. Old Glory that sets this stuff up. It's top notch, right? And I can remember being down in the museum at Bedrock, and there's that big curved beam. It's the one piece in the museum you get to touch. And I stood there and just looked at it. And finally I reached out and I touched it, and this transfer of energy that jolted from that beam through me and grounded it, right? Like, literally just wiped, drained. That was it. I was done. I didn't care about anything else. I was done. I needed to get out of there. Went upstairs, back outside, ran into Jared. He had an opportunity to kind of go on a private tour. He was pointing some of that stuff out. We walked around the reflection pools, and just kind of get to see the names, right? And we went around the North Tower. We make our way to the South Tower, and I was like, hey, let's stop. Let's stop over there and just give it a minute. It's hot out, and who wanted to be, so we stopped, and we're in the sunshine nonetheless. And we started having a conversation a little bit, and he starts talking about his story, and he shared it, which I never knew. Right. And I said, no, let's talk about it when we get to the room. Like, I think you're going to tell me things that I don't want to be here. Right. So then he's like, what about your service? And I kind of gave him an abbreviated version about Luke. And we stop and we look down. I end up looking down, and I see this finger scrolled message, and it says, I miss you. Somebody's loved one was there and wrote that underneath that name with their finger, right? Smudged it on the memorial. And it was the flight that hit the Pentagon. And I have a good friend, Nathan Coward, who responded to the Pentagon. He's got his health issues and all that kind of stuff from that. And he's an amazing veteran advocate. So I was instantly connected to him. So I sent him a picture. And he immediately responded back and sends me the bio of that person. It was a flight attendant, right? Because it said, the message said, I know you are in the sky, right? So this was one of the flight attendants. It was real at that moment. Like, this is who this person is. And I'm crying. I mean, I am 250 pounds and just sopping mess, right? And Jared's like, what in the hell has just happened to you? I get my get it together, and I point it out, and now he's crying, right? So here the two of us are standing there hugging one another. And then the bustle of New York is just continuing, right? Just continues around you. So we finished walking around, and there was no other messages we saw. Why we stopped there, why that was where I was like, let's just stop over there. I don't know, right? I don't know if it was meant to be or what. But it was really, really powerful. And I mean, I remember getting to the room and just letting it go. Just cried and cried and cried. I mean, I probably spent 2 hours in my room crying, right? I let it go, right? That's part of it. I was able to kind of rip the wounds open and just let's heal. Let's get this done with and get back to life. So it was just an immeasurable amount of ability to heal. And then to hear Jared's story and have conversations with him, and I think our conversations helped him with his own issues and his own demons because he was comfortable to talk about it. So super, super great opportunity to see New York City. Our squad was awesome. Great people. We had so much fun. Such a great group of people. And, now that we've been back and it's like, that guy's brother gave me my very first vehicle loan when I was 18, when I joined the Army. Her brother is a guy that I joined the Freemasons with. This is so, there's so many connections to them outside of it other than that, right? Mm-hmm. So the ability to heal, the ability to just take a deep breath and share that with people who know that this is going to be tough, right? Everybody, I think, that goes on an honor flight is scared. They're nervous. They're worried about it. But at the end of the day, go, because your service matters. It's not that you deserved it or you've earned it. Go and heal. It's an important thing.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And very similar. So my first trip when I went as a veteran, it was when I got home, kind of similar to when you went up to the hotel room. I remember it was, I think, Monday. A lot of the stuff just kind of clicked and I absorbed what have you. And I just bawled in the shower, but it felt good,
right?
It felt good. I think there's so many out there that are holding that in there. Again, the right time is the right time when you feel it's the right time. But point being, glad that you were able to do that. Glad you had Spoody with you to experience that and the bond that you two continue to strengthen during that. Yeah, Gold Squad. They're all of them. It's we were so lucky to have such a great group.
That was an awesome the whole group.
Yeah, awesome
dream team,
group.
Everybody.
So we're finishing up here on the Preserving Freedom podcast with Victor Magnus, retired first sergeant. So in closing, and my thank you to you. Some men growing up dreaming of what they want to become. Our guest grew up knowing he wanted to serve. From the small towns of Wisconsin to the training grounds to deployments across the world, Kuwait, Ukraine, he answered that call for more than 2 decades. Not for fame, not for recognition, but because duty was written in his heart. 21 years, he stood where others needed him most. He trained soldiers, he mentored leaders, he carried responsibility when the weight was heavy. He led from the front. He wore the diamond of a first sergeant not as a symbol of power, but as a symbol of service. Behind every rank is sacrifice. Behind every ribbon is time away from family. Behind every promotion is another challenge accepted. And behind every veteran is a story far deeper than most will ever know. Today, we honor that story. To you, brother, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for every year in uniform. Thank you for the nights no one saw. Thank you for the standards you upheld. Thank you for the soldiers you shaped, many of them. Thank you for proving that leadership is not about what you wear on your chest, but what you carry in your character. And you are an exact example of that. And to all who have served, are serving, or carry the burden of service in silence, this platform is for you. Because freedom has never been free. It has always been paid for by ordinary people willing to do extraordinary things. This has been Called to Serve, a First Sergeant's Journey on the Preserving Freedom podcast. with Army veteran Victor Magnus. I'm your host, Jason Foster, and I remind you, freedom isn't just something we celebrate, it's something we preserve every single day. Keep honoring, keep believing, and keep standing proud, and say it with me. Damn, it's a great day to be an American. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you.